Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to Evermore YouTube channel. It's Chris and Mark back 9:30 Monday night, asking the same question we ask every week. What's going on? I'll tell you what's going on, Mark. The weather was rubbish at the weekend, and so was Newcastle United. That's what's going on. How are you doing tonight, mate?
I'm all right, mate. Recovered from the wind and rain. I think it sort of summed up the performance on Saturday, didn't it? It really put a dampener on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I was going to say, well, I think Newcastle United's defence was damper than old Storm Darren, mate. That's for damn sure. We're going to get stuck right into that tonight. There's plenty to talk about, as always. And if this is the kind of thing you guys like, smash subscribe. Would love you to come and join us. We're over 9K, you wonderful people. You got us over 9K before Christmas. That's what I wanted. I asked Mariah Carey, but fuck her. What does she matter? You lot made us get a 9K. So absolutely brilliant. Thank you very much to all you wonderful people who smashed it. But 10K is the next milestone upon this amazing journey. We love you forever for that. Thank you so much, guys. We have got a mint prize to give away. As you can see over Mark's shoulder there was a little snazzy blue retro Kevin Keegan style McEwen's shirt. So we will be doing a post for that for you guys to smash a comment on. We want you to put, I think the word Keegan is going to be what we're going to go for, Mark, isn't it?
Why not?
Why not?
Make sure you're subscribed. If you're not, subscribe anyway. I'll put a post up on the community channel. If you comment Keegan and along anything else you want to post on there as well, keep it nice though. Keep it above the board. Keep it above board.
You must be a subscriber to be in it to win it. But we will get that up soon, and we will do a live draw for that as well. But sadly, Mark, that's the good news out of the way. We're going to have to come back and talk about the garbage that was Newcastle United at the weekend, and we'll get stuck right into it. We are live tonight, guys. Jump in the chat. There's loads of you in there already. We'll get to your comments momentarily, but there is only one place to start, Mark, and it's Bee Stings down at whatever the hell their stadium's called. I don't even know what it's called. I'm just going to call it Frank Park. Frank Park is what I'm going to call it, because I don't know what the hell to call it. But we were crap down there, mate. Absolutely crap. I'm going to let you get stuck into. You have plenty of your Jamie Carragher-esque slides to go through. I'm completely lost the energy, I think, to talk about these absolute showers of shit of footballers. I will find it momentarily, but over to you, Mark, first and foremost.
Shower of shit might just about sum it up, to be honest with you. It was awful. Defensively, it was absolutely awful. As Newcastle usually do, they create some chances. They should have scored more. The Isak chance for one was almost unforgivable when he rounds the keeper and doesn't slot that in. But I've seen comments around the lineup. I've seen comments around the fact that the Tonali has that really good performance in. We'll see, Trevor. He has that really good performance against Liverpool, and he's done really well, and then he's pulled out of it. And I sort of get the lineup. The way that Brentford are at home, particular. I mean, what are they? 22 from 25 or 24 from at home. So far, they've been exceptional. They're the joint top scorers in the league. They are very, very good at home. I sort of understand the lineup. There are players that probably need a rest. I think Gordon could probably have done with a rest, and things like that. But if you're going to rest a midfielder, I probably would have rested Bruno over Tonali and just swapped them over for that. But that's by the by. But for me, the worst part of the entire day was the defensive shambles and the return to the Eddie Howe gap, as we christened it before, didn't we? And it was back within a minute, and it was just so easy for Brentford to play through that hole again. And this is 65 seconds into the game, 5 midfielders almost in a line. One sort of goes to press, and they leave a huge gap behind them. And what happens is, all of a sudden, Brentford on that break, there's 10 yards, 15 yards of just free space for Brentford players to run into and get in beyond the midfield, and they're straight on the back. And it was kind of set the tone for the game. 10 minutes later, same thing again. One player goes to press, rested in a line, and that gap in behind again for Brentford players to exploit. And it carried on like that. It's just too easy. When Newcastle defend, or when from the midfield like this, it's too easy for players to just play that direct ball through. Again, later on in the first half, 4 players in a line, nobody's dropping into that hole in front of the defence. 2 centre-backs occupied by 1 player, and there's a guy straight in the middle of those lines that is then able to receive the ball, and it just went on. And then we come to the mistakes, and the goal that sets it off. I think Lewis Hall has to do better. Look, we said this from the very start. He's a young lad. He's 20 now. 19, 20-year-old player.
He's naive. He's naive a bit there, I think, by not showing him the line, isn't he?
We expect there are going to be mistakes. He's got senior players all around him. What are they doing to help him out in this? Shea and Byrne should do a lot better to help come across and cover that gap. Joe Linton should be getting back. There's nobody, again, within 10 yards of him from the midfield to come in and help out and getting that. And we've praised Joe Linton. We've praised the midfield for getting back in and helping him out. They offered nothing. Buemo was brilliant again on Saturday, but he was allowed to be. He was given the freedom of the G-Tech to do it. It was awful at times. This in the second half, this is for the third goal. What the hell is Fabian Schär doing? Going up, and I mean, he pulls his head away from the ball. There's no real challenge for the ball. He just allows it to go over him. Absolutely no. I mean, I'd go as far as I almost think he's bottled that one, because it's just shocking. Again, Fabian Schär, he steps up, allows Buemo to sort of, he's a yard and a half away from him. The ball's on his side, and Fabian Schär gets completely caught out, allows the turn and the ball through. Shadow makes that run from deep. Byrne has to cover, because he has to cover the turn from the Brentford player, and then it isn't able to then cover 2. And Livramento's too far away in the end to really make a serious challenge. And then there were other bits and pieces as well. So, I mean, this was the last couple. Nick Pope, again, infuriated me at the weekend. This was just one. I mean, how he's so slow to get up in this situation where he saves the ball really awkwardly. And then he isn't quick. I mean, there's not a Brentford player within 10 yards, and he's not quick enough to get up and scream for that ball to be his and reset and start things again. It's just madness. And the pass from Harvey Barnes there is just pathetic and
criminal. That
absolutely
criminal,
expect more from them in that regard. And then the headers. I mean, maybe he's a little bit harsh in Murphy, but I really think he should do better with an open goal in front of him. Sandro Tonali, how you do not hit the target.
Head it down, Sandro.
You have to do better.
They teach you that in school. To head it down.
Yeah,
not head it up.
So there's an awful lot to be said. I understand, and then we'll get to the Howe a bit in a bit, and I understand some of the calls for it. But I want to my rant about the players is that you have an international defender that can't close down properly for the whistle goal. You have an international defender that can't challenge for a header. You have an international defender that runs past a forward in the act of receiving the ball. You have an international goalkeeper that can't pass a ball 3 yards without mishitting it. In that second half, Nick Pope hits a ball a yard wide from a 3-yard pass to Kieran Trippier. He then follows that up by mishitting a pass to the opposite side to Dan Byrne. Because he's put Trippier under pressure, he then has to get the ball back and then play the ball to Byrne, which he mishits. You've that international goalkeeper that can't extend fully for a dive. I've watched that Wissa goal 20 times, and for the first 15 times, I thought it's a great strike. And then you start to look at it, and Pope pulls his hand. He starts to react to brace himself for hitting the deck and doesn't extend his arm fully. I'm not saying he should save that, but he should get closer.
Is that because his injuries have taken a toll and he can't do that? Is that why?
Maybe, I think more that he's scared of landing wrong on it. And
in case he hits himself again.
But if that's the case, then he shouldn't be playing. If he's too worried about his injury for diving, the one thing that a goalkeeper's supposed to do is dive. And if he can't do that properly, then you have to look to move on. And And again, that international goalkeeper that can't catch a simple ball. There was a throw-in in the first half that comes in and the players miss it, and he punches it out for a goal, for a corner. Just, I mean, I know it's wet, I know it's windy, but that ball's dropping straight into your lap. Catch it. It's those things, and those are the huge moments that let Newcastle down at the weekend. Those are the huge moments that let the fans down at the weekend, because they travel an awful long way in really shitty weather, and then are served up with that performance. And on the back of that Liverpool performance, where quite a few thought, like, that's the benchmark, that's where they have to go. It was a complete letdown.
Well, once again, I think there's a few comments have been there as well. Once again, no apology from Howe, all the players, for the travelling fans who came down that shit weather to watch that absolute tripe as well. Bruno came out, he's very honest after the game, and said they were a total mess, said they were inconsistent. They need to find a consistency. He didn't say how they were going to find the consistency, but he just said that obviously they can't find a consistency. I mean, George makes a good point about the shoulder injury, and he's saying he's shielding. That's what George does, obviously, when he's got a bad shoulder. We'll come back to Pope in a second. I agree with Chippers. Chippers said something else as well about them being cowards. They are fucking cowards, Chippers, because they turn up like they do against Liverpool because they're in the shop window, right? I'm sorry if I sound cynical here, right? But you cannot blame me for saying this. Alan Shearer said something similar, so we'll get onto that in a minute. But you cannot go to St James's Park under the lights on a Wednesday night and play like they did against the best team in the country and then put that performance in at the weekend to a man. Fucking terrible. I feel sorry for Lewis Hall, as a couple of people already said. He was completely isolated. He made a mistake for the Mbeumo goal. He was a great player. Lewis Hall's had a tough week for a 20-odd-year-old kid. He's had to mark Mo Salah and Mbeumo, who are two of the most dangerous players in the fucking league. And if you watch, he's learned his lesson after the mistake that he's made. After the goal, he does really well. He gets stuck in, and Mbeumo, he starts giving it a little bit back to him. And Mbeumo even moved over to the other side at one point because Hall was getting a bit tighter to him. But he had no protection. He had no cover. Comment there, I think Trevor's got a comment about Harvey Barnes. Barnes, he feels sorry for, never gets a run, knows the manager doesn't want him. How do you feel? Longstaff could take a dump on Howe's desk and start. Barnes can have a good game on his bench. Now, there's a huge problem here, right? Because you're talking about, we'll get to the manager in a minute. I've got plenty to say about that. As you know, I've already done a video about that. And I'm sticking to my guns. I'm doubling down. I'm not changing my opinion on it, right? But the issue that you have when you're talking about Gordon and Barnes in the same team, right? I know Barnes started, shit pass aside, Barnes didn't do too bad. He scored a goal, made a couple of nice runs, but the shit pass is obviously what everybody's going to look at because we lost the game, right? But Gordon previously was in a team because of his work rate, because of his ability to get into the box and create things and win pens and free kicks and get goals and all that. Gordon has been dog shit for a good few games now. He deserved to come out the side. I know he was really good against Liverpool, but I can understand why he's rested him. If he's burnt himself out against Liverpool, Barnes has come in, but Barnes has to take his chances. But I agree with Trevor a little bit there. Harvey Barnes seems like he's not wanted in this picture, and it goes back to the manager, which we'll get into in a minute, right? This manager gets a free pass from all these Kool-Aid swigging cult-like fucking followers that aren't giving this guy a hard enough time to why he cannot get two very talented players into the same team at the same time. Leicester City was getting Barnes and Maddison playing together. I know they're two slightly different players, but it's up to the manager, Mark, surely, to get Harvey Barnes in the team. Harvey Barnes gets goals, right? I don't care what you say. Goals win fucking football games, right? And Harvey Barnes scores your goals, right? And Gordon is a creative, dangerous player as well when he can be asked. I think he should cut that stupid mullet haircut of his off because he's been dog shit since he grew that trailer park thing at the back of his head. But that's a big issue for me, Mark. Harvey Barnes, everyone says weird signing. Why did we sign him? Why did we sign a right winger? To be fair, the guy we should have signed was the guy who scored a belter in the first 8 minutes of the game, Brian Mbeumo. That's a player that we should have signed, but we can't go back in time. But this whole team for me, Mark, a lot of them look completely devoid of what's the word? Form, confidence. I don't even think they look like they care anymore. It's okay when the whole world's watching you against Liverpool. And maybe Arne Slot's watching you, or Pep Guardiola's watching you, or Mikel Arteta's watching you, and Isak fancies a move to Arsenal, Gordon fancies a move to Liverpool, Bruno fancies a move to City. All of a sudden, hey, the levels go up. You go against Brentford at the BTEC Stadium, or Frank Park, as I called it, and they just don't bother their arse. That's on the players as much as it is on Eddie Howe, in my opinion, possibly more.
look, I don't think you can do that. I've just seen a message there from, is it Trevor? It's a manager sets the standard. You're right. He is, and he has to see what's going on and change things. Now, you can't tell me that you see that in the first 12 minutes of the game where you see the ability to play through a ball. And I've talked about this time and time again. You can't watch a side defend like that and press from the front and leave those gaps in between the midfield and defence and go, do you know what, that looks all right. You have to be able to react. You have to change things. You have to be able to motivate those players when things aren't going right. And if it does start badly, then sometimes a change is needed. Sometimes look, Newcastle get back into the game really quickly, and to their credit, I thought that I said first half they did create some chances and probably should have been ahead. But there were so many opportunities that Brentford got into positions to create better, and they probably should have created better chances for me as well. Because
it could be 5 or 6 mark, to be fair, but couldn't have scoffed at that,
The funny ththing was they didn't create really clear-cut chances. Good evening. They really didn't.
That was very Vincent Price. Good evening.
Good evening.
Or Alfred Hitchcock. What did it do?
But they didn't create those clear-cut chances. So it's Newcastle allowing the goals to happen. It's exactly what they did. But there has to be a riot act. There has to be something that changes, and not just the bog standard substitutions on 60 minutes that go to change
substitutions.
Every time, you know what's coming. You know who's coming on. You know who they're coming on for. Generally, nothing really changes. There's no change in focus. There's no change in style. There's no change in approach. We see.
Sorry, I've just seen Chipper's comment there. That's brilliant. Howe, keep it 4-3. There is predictable as Katie Price over her legs. Absolutely.
That makes a change from it having been Sharon Stone's
I was going to
comment
say.
that normally.
I was gonna follow up and say, but not nearly as smelly, Chippers. But anyway, I don't want to throw Mark off of his sprite.
Please don't. It's no need for that.
Nothing mysterious about that girl, mate.
Jeez. Honestly. So there's so little reaction, and I think one of the journalists had mentioned at the end of the game, and it wasn't a Northeast journal. It said at the end of the game, you saw Howe stood there, hands in his pockets, almost
clueless, mate.
Yeah, just not able to take in what's just happened. And
nope.
There are. Yes, I know Newcastle are hampered, particularly defensively, with injuries. Lascelles has gone, Botman's not there, Kraft isn't there. But we've seen these performances time and time again from Fabian Schär this season, and a lot is forgiven because he scores those. He gets in position. He can score the goal against Liverpool. Always forgotten about performance, but he's been pretty shit this season. And those sorts of mistakes he's made all season long, where he's got away with some of it, but he just gets himself in the wrong position. He doesn't challenge. He doesn't win duels in the air. You're a centre back. You're supposed to win the ball in the air, especially against forwards that are smaller than you. Something with that has to change. And like I said, I can understand why there are calls for the manager, because we've seen this for an awful long time, and there were allowances given last season because of the injury crisis that was there. But there isn't the injury crisis as much there, defenders aside, but we're just not seeing anything. We're not seeing any change in focus, any change in approach. It's just the same old pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, we might as well move on to the defensive mess, really, because that kind of dovetails into the game. And just allow me a second here, Mark. I said this in my video as well. And again, this kind of does twin into the manager. This back four is aging out. This back four was old when it was put together. This back four had, 3 of them were in their 30s, including Pope, which, yes, it's young for a goalkeeper, but when you have 2 bad injuries, that obviously set you back, and affect your ability as a goalkeeper. That's going to hurt you as well. The inability to realise the centre-back position needed to be improved upon. And yes, I know apparently we're after Mark Guehi in the summer, but as you said before, Mark, why the fuck wasn't on a plan A, B or C? You had players like Malik Chow, Tomori at AC Milan. who have been heavily linked to the football club. Even the boy that signed for Arsenal. All these players being linked to the football club and not one single move, because Mitchell stopped short of saying Howe wanted one player and one player only, and that was Mark Guehi. But thanks to that, melted mannequin of a face fucking arsehole chairman, Steve Parish, that didn't happen because he just took the piss, and Newcastle didn't move on from that. And Howe rolled the dice and he gambled on these players being good enough to fill in until either we get to January or the end of the season, or Lascelles or Botman comes back. Big mistake. Gambled, and he shouldn't have gambled, because the biggest problem that we have here is Dan Burn, is a good player at a certain level of football and a certain type of game. Give him a big, rough, tough centre forward to get a fight against. He's brilliant. He'll give you everything he's got. Dan Burn could put a shift in against Haaland at the Etihad, or, against, I don't know, Frank Park against Barrow Town or something that way, as somebody was saying there before about Frank Park being our number 9. Dan Burn will give you everything that he's got, right? Fabian Schär going to the Euros was a huge mistake. The amount of football he had with the Champions League, the Premier League, all the cup games that he had the season before, and then going to the Euros, he has aged rapidly coming back to the Premier League. He looks 4 or 5 yards off the pace. He dwells on the ball too much. His long passing is completely scouted by the majority of the opposition. They just drop 4 yards and either bring it down the chest or head it straight back to where it come from. And he looks terrible in the majority of games. His decision-making is poor. I think he's cocky on the ball. He's getting us into trouble. And, and there's nobody in the squad to come in and take his place. I mean, people are talking about Emil Kraft, right? If Emil Kraft hadn't got injured, I'd have Kraft in against Leicester. Yeah. I'd fucking hook Schär out of the team, because he's not worthy of a spot anymore. But because there's nobody there, there's no youth being elevated to the first team picture. Murphy's disappeared off the fucking radar. There's nobody in there. You look at that bench and you've got Trippier, who can't be asked by the looks of it anymore, wants to be away. He's got his problems off the pitch. God knows what's going on with him. I mean, Matt Targett, fucking hell. Matt Targett, you'd be better off having fucking, Taggart, the fucking 80s copper on the bench, than fucking Matt Targett. He's a waste of a space. Louis Miley can't even get in this team. That's on the manager. Why is he selecting these players who are a waste of a spot on the bench that you've got no intention of bringing on? Is it just a case of a contractual obligation or something like that? But that back four and the goalkeeper, you've seen people like Mamardashvili go into Liverpool. Ridiculous we didn't move for that kid. Even Ramsdale on loan. Why the fuck didn't we try and go for Ramsdale? You can't. Our goalkeeping bench, like I said in the video, is honestly, it's like the cast of Phoenix Knights. Our fucking goalkeeper bench. They look horrendous. The bunch of people nobody wants. And I mean, Karius can't even get a club, and we gave him a contract. And that's a huge problem for them upstairs. There's no doubt about that. What the fuck have you been playing at with the squad depth in this team? But the fact that Howe wants new contracts for aging players who are regressing at a rapid pace. I mean, Fabian Schär looks like Benjamin Button backwards, doesn't he? He looks about 86-year-old now compared to what he used to be. And Howe's pushing for a new contract for him. Shocking by the club and the manager, in my opinion, Mark. And this defence is a shambles. The Premier League is full of pace. We're playing against Leicester next, right? Jamie Vardy's about, what was he, 40? And he's still quick as fuck and gets in behind the back line. You telling me Vardy's not going to run at Schär and take the piss out of him? Big time.
Yeah, if they play it right at the weekend, he will have fun, because the two at centre back have shown that they're no good when it comes to pace. You mentioned Murphy before. I don't understand where he's vanished to. Those three of the back four, because you've got to be fair to Tino and to Hall, that 20 and 22. Tino's looked shaky. He's looked great at times. He's looked shaky at others. He's
poor offensively, mate. He gets a nosebleed when he crosses the line.
Yeah, it's almost Lee Dixon-esque, isn't it? To kind of, he gets the halfway line. That's enough. But I come back to you. You make that change. You bring Trippier on, who does absolutely nothing when he comes on. I mean, it's not exactly his fault at that point. But you take Lewis Hall off, who I thought had done pretty well after the initial mistake.
He did. He was making some really good passes as well. He looked like an offensive threat, and he was one of the only few, and he hooks them off.
He is one of the better passing ranges at the club. He will keep it simple when he has to. He's good at moving the ball around. He can carry the ball too. But again, you bring Trippier on and you stick Tino at left back. And again, you've got that empty shirt on the bench in Target, who's a left back.
Pointless.
What's the point? And that's infuriating, especially when I guess it's the Target thing, especially when you've got Lloyd Kelly there as well, because then you've got a player that can cover both positions, and you won't use him at all. Like I said, I mean, you said before about the lack of depth. I really can't. The more I get kind of worked up about the fact that this whole PSR issue, and I know it's fundamentally wrong that Newcastle aren't not able to
punish for
spend
succeeding, just like Aston Villa exactly is saying. They're not having to try and sell their key players to try and keep progressing. It's wrong.
But then you flip it and you go, well, even though there were those PSR restrictions, you were still willing to go out and spend 15 million on a centre forward that you're not going to play because he's one for the future. Well, to me, that can wait, because the here and now actually is, and I know you have to look to the future, and they've done that with going out and signing some of the youth players and getting them in the youth squad and trying to sort that production line out going forward. But a £15 million player to come and sit on the bench for an entire season is absolutely worthless. He probably will play in the FA Cup, but I wouldn't put it past Howe to not play him. But he should. But that'll be it. He's not going to. He's going to get the odd minute.
He could score a hat-trick against Brentford in the FA Cup. And he still won't start, and he won't play it. He won't bring him back on. So yeah, it's frustrating. To sort of talk about that defence is just, I mean, they were shambolic. Their decision-making at the weekend, their ability on the ball, because you said it there, I mean, Fabian Schär's mistakes and costing the side possession in moments where he does get lazy on the ball. There's a little bit of Bruno in that as well. He gets caught. He's not quick enough in moving the ball on. I'd go mad at Bruno. If I was in midfield with him, I would go mad at him. Absolutely. He loses the ball, mate. Dreadful.
And I've talked about Dan Burn's not a progressive ball playing defender. I've talked about that wind up he has to take when he plays a pass, bless him. But he's not that player. So and I go back to what I said last week: is Newcastle have to get out of this where we have to play in a certain way to play the ball, get back to what you are best at, and get that confidence back. And we saw that midweek. They're very best by pressing, by making Liverpool make mistakes. Yes, they conceded goals, but crucially, they scored goals and they were able to stay in the game. But there weren't those high-profile mistakes because they weren't trying to do something they're just not built to do.
Well, we know who's to blame for that. We'll get into him in a minute. We've got a new member, Chalky 150. Thank you very much, Chalky. Really appreciate you smashing that button as well, mate. There's loads of you guys coming in. I think Dazzler saying, is Eddie best as an underdog team manager? I think I said this in my video. For me, we'll get into the manager in a minute, Dazzler. I think the problem is that Eddie Howe in his mind still thinks he's that Bournemouth type manager. I don't think he's made that step up to being a bigger team manager. If we deem ourselves as a bigger team, so I just don't think he's there, which we'll get into in a minute. There, Chip as said, Rebecca Vardy would have share on toast. Never mind Jamie Vardy. Absolutely. Philip saying Leicester new manager bounce. They have, by looks of it. Ruud van Nistelrooy has been doing very, very well. Since he's gone there. And again, that's what new managers can bring you, which we'll get stuck into the new managers in a minute. I've seen a couple of comments actually way back. I'm not going to scroll back for it, but I think Ty was saying he was getting a bit of jip for having a difference of opinion. You guys all know, and it goes without saying, but you guys all know in the Evermore chat, we can all have a difference of opinion. Let's all just keep it clean and tidy. We can always disagree with each other. We're all Newcastle fans at the end of the day. We want the club to do well, but you can have an opinion in here. You can say how out, you can say how in. You can say your reasons why, and nobody's getting attacked in our chat. So our chat is always a safe place for you guys. Chalky saying, cracking show as always, lads. Been watching for a year. So first-time member. Thank you very much, Chalky. I'm glad you finally hit that button. I'm sure it was Mark finally ranting about players. Mark's even had enough. Mark's over the edge, mate. That's how much Eddie Howe was wound.
When I lose it, things are gone.
Absolutely, 100%. Well, might as well get into it now, Mark. And it's the manager. How out is what we've called it. I made my feelings pretty clear, right? And I'm not going to roll back on this. I've got no problems with people who say they're Howe in. I was talking to a couple of lads today who are Howe in and had their reasons for it, right? But I honestly do think the more I'm thinking about this, right? People are so scared about Eddie Howe leaving because they're worried about regressing back to what Newcastle used to be with people like Steve Bruce and Carver and managers like that. Newcastle are not going to go back to that level. If Eddie Howe loses his job, they are not going to go back to a manager like that. They're going to go up, or they're going to go at least equal, in their opinion, as to someone who can get a freshness out of this team, And I look at it, Mark, and the problem that I have with this, and I don't want Eddie Howe to fail, right? I like Eddie Howe as a bloke. I think he's articulate, intelligent, charming, all that kind of stuff. He's been a breath of fresh air since he's come in a football club. I do think the journalists aren't doing him any favours because they don't ask him difficult enough questions. They're not asking why Louis Miley's not in the squad. They're not asking why he won't change the formation. They're not asking how about Harvey Barnes and Gordon in the same team? How do you get the best out of Isaac? They're too busy hanging on his every word and trying to, I don't know, flirt with him or crack little shitty jokes or ask him what his favourite band is. There's only about one or two journalists who actually will ask the hard questions. And because of that, we as fans don't get the answers. So we get frustrated with the manager. And a lot of us do start to attack the manager because of that reason. So journalists, if you're watching, do your fucking job, as Roy Keane would say, and ask him difficult questions. But going back to the manager himself, the reason that I think it's time for a change, and I'll say this with a caveat, right? I'm only advocating a change if he can get better than what Eddie Howe is. There's no point in getting somebody who's worse or equal. Get somebody who's better. People mentioned about Graham Potter. For me, that's like swapping a vanilla milkshake to swapping a vanilla milkshake with one sugar in it or something like that. It's not different. It's still the same drink, just tastes slightly different, right? But you need to get somebody who's better than Eddie Howe. And for me, for Newcastle, and this is a big test here of the PIF's love or thirst for this project, Mark. A lot of people are asking if PIF have got bored, have they rowed back, have they pulled away, they're sick of all the restrictions, and they're thinking, I can't be asked anymore. Now, if they get rid of Eddie Howe, the next appointment has to be the level up manager. And I'm talking about, people like Klopp, people like Ancelotti, people like Mourinho, people with pedigree, people who have won things, people who can come in and do a job, like Villa did with Emery. Emery was a winner. He won cups. He done well in La Liga. He'd been the manager of Arsenal, manager of PSG, I think, hadn't he, as well, before he come to Villa. He was a big name manager, and that's what Newcastle United need to do. If they're going to get rid of Eddie Howe, they have to go to the level above for me. But the reason I think he's running out of time, Mark, if you look at the stops along the way, we've seen this journey before. It's always the same stops. The same mistakes being made, players showing up one week, disappearing the next, and fans leaving the ground early, all this kind of a thing. And no matter what people think, Newcastle are on this train now, and normally it ends at the line with the manager getting the bin. That's what I think.
It does. I mean, the buck stops with the gaffer at the end of the day, and if it's not right, then the owners will have to act. And the worrying trend is there that 2 wins in 11 in the Premier League.
It's bad form.
Is really poor form, but I think for me more than anything, it's the poor performances. Poor performance against Brentford, poor against Palace, poor against West Ham. Average against Brighton, poor against Everton, poor against Fulham.
Mark, he's not learning either. He's making the same mistakes time and time again. That's the problem here.
How many times have we sort of talked about the fact that he was still a relatively young manager and he had to learn from these mistakes? And he's just not. I mean, I don't see any progression from him. I really don't. And I wanted to see that from Eddie Howe because I thought there was the that moment where everything went right in the season when you qualify for the Champions League and you have then really good performances in the Champions League against PSG. Really unlucky away to them and again sort of went for it a little bit naively against Milan at home, but there were real positives and there were real opportunities to then step up and take a step on from there for him and prove his worth and prove the fact that he could be more than just the first rung in the ladder of the new ownership and the new Newcastle is
the Mark
following
Hughes
the takeover
of our journey.
I think he's always going to get labelled with that. I think because we saw it happen, and there was that first run. Then you move on, and you move on to better things, and it's. I think I'm not fully in the out camp. I'm not. I'm sorry, Trevor. I know you were looking forward to maybe being there.
Honestly, Storm Barrett couldn't blow Mark off a fence, mate. He really couldn't. Mark is stuck to that fence.
But I do have a foot in it because
you see the reasons. You see the reasons.
I see the reasons for not. I see the reasons for doing it. But I'm moving towards that because I don't want to see him get sacked.
I don't because he's a lovely
other than the obvious. I don't want to see any manager get sacked. But
absolutely,
you get the point. Steve Bruce should have been sacked long before. But anyway, that's a different story.
Well, you know.
I had to set you up for that. But there has to come a point where if you're not taking steps forward, then it's a cliche, I know. If you're not taking steps forward in football, you're moving backwards. There is no such thing as standing still. And Newcastle have to face facts at some point in the era of Eddie Howe will come to an end. Now, he can change it. If he goes and wins the next 4 games, for example, all of a sudden the tide's maybe turned. But I've not seen anything so far this season to suggest that'll be the case.
No, but I think lose to Leicester and out of the cup, he's gone. That's my opinion. But let this comment up from I Like Coffee. It's an interesting one. Do you think Xavi is a good manager choice? One of the greatest midfielders. Bruno Tonali could learn under him. He has connections and he could have that pull for Spanish players. I'm not sure Xavi pulled up any trees at Barca, Mark, did he? I don't think was he that good? I don't remember, hearing wonderful things about him.
No, really. It's funny, isn't it? Because you
brings his boots.
And bring your boots and you straight in the side, son. I think there's probably an issue there. I think that there's a list of other managers that are possibilities. Terzic is one of them.
I think he's Spurs or West Ham bound. If we don't do it already, he'll end up at Spurs or West Ham.
The talk today was that Graham Potter had said that he'd be interested in going to West Ham until the short term.
See that.
Moyes was potentially going to go back to West Ham for a third chance.
Jesus.
But I think you have to look at. I mean, what else is around? So you have Terzic. You've got
Allegri. Allegri still
is available.
Why is he not had a job for so long with his pedigree and his trophy cabinet? Why?
Would they go for somebody like? Would they go for Thomas Frank?
I don't know.
Could you prize him out of Brentford? I'm not sure you could.
I was surprised De Zerbi went to Marseille. To be honest with you, I was surprised he didn't hang fire for another job.
Somebody in the chat might be more knowledgeable of the French league to me, but I mean, how is he doing over there?
How well is he doing?
If he's not doing as well.
Some very strange things about Mason Greenwood, to be fair. So I don't know if that's.
Let me stay clear of that one then.
Maybe
Mancini is another one. I mean, you could go full Man City and go for Mancini.
He's available. Mancini's available.
I'm trying to think. I'm furiously trying to scroll through and trying to find some of the ones that have actually been linked. Adi Huda.
Iriola. Well, I wouldn't go for him. I said that the big thing for PIF, right, is yes, we know we're nobbled financially and all that stuff, right? But as I'm saying there, if they feel that pulling the trigger on Eddie is the way to go, right, they have to get that next appointment right. So for me, they're going to have to either go for somebody who's in a job and pay compensation to get him out of a job. Now, in the summer, right, you would have had your choice of Thomas Tuchel, Jose Mourinho, or Pochettino. And in my opinion, right now, all three of them would do better jobs than Eddie Howe with that squad, right? And that sounds a bit bold, but I think they would. Jose would have you playing effectively, if not attractively, right? And he might win you a cup You probably will win your cup and you get your top 4. Pochettino would play nice football and be a bit more defensively sound, I think, than Eddie would be. And obviously Tuchel as well, I think, is just a better, more experienced pedigree manager. You've also got the likes of Nagelsmann, who's basically like, an enhanced version of Eddie Howe, isn't he really? But he's in the German job. So you'd have to throw big money to get them out of their contracts.
And that's part of the problem, because Eddie Howe's got a contract until 2027. If he's on something along the lines of $6 million a year, that's a huge amount of money that you then potentially have to throw at Eddie Howe for him to leave, and then have to pay a huge amount of money to a new manager coming in. I mean, looking at the sort of free agent market for managers, Joachim Löw, maybe. Xavi's obviously available. Allegri's one, Terzic another. Big Sam, anyone? No?
Gerard. Of course.
Oh, Christ.
I can't believe the guy's made a career out of doing that noise, Unbelievable.
There isn't an awful lot that are free agents, so you then potentially have to go into looking at somebody who's at another club. And then it's about the compensation.
Hang on. Marcus has read my mind, and I said this before in the Toon review chat when I was in there as well. Now, don't shake your head. Let me get into this, right? If PAF really want to flex them financial muscles, they get on a private jet, they go and see Jurgen Klopp, and they offer him more money than he's ever seen in his life, and say, here is the biggest amount of money you've ever seen in your life, Jurgen Klopp. Take the Newcastle job, right? And I know you say you wouldn't do it, and all the Scousers would be up in arms and all that stuff, right? Sorry, but money talks and bullshit walks, because look at all these brilliant players that are playing in the Saudi league that should still be in European football, right? Look at Messi over in Miami, playing walking football practically, right? You throw enough money at somebody, they will take it. So there's a message to the PIF. I'm with you, Marcus. Go and get a massive suitcase of cash and go and see Mr. Turkey Teeth and say, how's about this, Jurgen? And let's just see what happens. Go big, go hard on it, mate. Why not?
No, I said to you, I don't think there's a chance in hell that Klopp would ever manage another Premier League side. It's I just,
for anybody in the audio, I was doing the money fingers there. For anybody in the audio,
I just can't see that ever being the case. There's not I don't think there's any money in the world that you throw. I think there's such a love affair then with Liverpool that I just don't think that's the case. But, geez, what a breath of fresh air. What a breath of fresh air that might be to bring it back. No.
Do you know what? I would actually just want it just to see the meltdown. Just to Just to watch Jamie Carragher piss his trousers live on Sky Sports on Monday Night Football. Just a puddle of piss appear like Ralph Wiggum in his pants, just as he's absolutely devastated that Jurgen Klopp is the Newcastle manager. Please, PF, make it happen just to watch Jamie Carragher wet his pants live on TV. It would be brilliant.
More than anything, and more than Carragher and the Scousers losing their way, what I'd love to see with this, and I'm going to have a dig at you now, Christopher, is all the shit that you threw at Jurgen Klopp.
Bring it.
All of a sudden, there's an awful lot of videos that are getting deleted off.
Listen, no, there's not. There's not. Do you know what it is? There's not, right? Joking. Because I'll be saying to him, I'll be saying he wound me up. I thought he was out of order and all that, but he wasn't our manager then. He fucking is now, and I'm all behind him. You slag as many people off as you want, Jurgen, son. In you go, lad. But yeah, that is a bit of a pipe dream, right? It's not going to happen really. But Newcastle really, if they do move Howe on, which for the record, I think he's out of ideas. I think for me, it was Europe or bust for Eddie Howe this season, right? And for me, there's no way that club's getting Europe. No way that team's getting Europe this season. No chance. You could sign Messi and Ronaldo prime in January and we'll probably still struggle to get European football because there's too many problems with that side. It's been a complete mismanagement, not just from the touchline, but from the boardroom as well. It's too many players, average players, who were kept on, who had peaked at Newcastle and should have been sold, should have been upgraded on, and they didn't. And that because of whatever it was, loyalty or expectation that the players were going to do better or a reward for getting us in the Champions League. Other teams are ruthless, man. Like even Keegan was ruthless. You know, without David Kelly, where would this football club be? And he fucking binned him for Andy Cole. And then Andy Cole left and we all went mad. And then he brought Les Ferdinand in and he brought Alan Shearer in. You know, Keegan always said, buy better. And that's where Howe falls down for me. He's too quick to reward and be loyal to players who run hard for him because he still thinks in his mind he's the Bournemouth manager. He doesn't realise that he's supposed to be a top 6 chase and top 4 chasing manager anymore. His mentality is still in the old school of where he was at Bournemouth, where he's fighting to stay in the league all season. I know he comes across really well on the camera and all that kind of stuff, but he's not ruthless enough because, I'm sorry, but I said this to somebody earlier on today, right? Go back to PSR and FFP, right? You're sitting there with 3 midfielders, right? In the shape of Sean Longstaff, Louis Miley, and Elliot Anderson, right? The very last thing you should be doing is selling either Miley or Anderson over Sean Longstaff. Sean Longstaff peaked with us. If they had sold him when we qualified for Champions League, they would have got 20+ million quid from him. Same with Wilson, same with Almiron. They could have recouped 60 million quid there, kept Anderson, kept Minter. There's 2 players there who could have given the squad a freshness, and they could have went and bought either a right-sided centre-half or a right winger with the extra money and spread it over a 5-year period. And they didn't do it. He kept those players. He kept Miggy Almiron, who missed from 1 fucking yard against AC Milan, which I will never forget. I will take that to the grave with me. I will never forget that. 1 fucking yard because he wouldn't use his wrong foot, right? And he kept Sean Longstaff and he played him over a £55 million Italian international. Never mind Elliot Anderson, who both of those players deserve to be in the squad ahead of Sean when he was going through bad form. And that's the bit that I can't forget or forgive from Eddie Howe is he's made these mistakes. He's risked it. He's gambled it by playing canny lads over quality players. His substitutions are too reactionary and not proactive enough. He makes subs when the game's gone from us, not when we've got a chance to still win it. And that's weak management. And I don't care how articulate he is and how nice he is and how charming he is. That's bad management. And if it wasn't Eddie Howe, as other people are saying, Bruce was a wanker, right? But if Bruce only won 2-11, Christ would be pitchforking him out of the town. It's only because Eddie got that top 4 finish and the 7th place finish, and yes, that buys him a little bit of time, but that time is running out, Mark. Big time.
Yeah, I find it hard to disagree, and this is where I'm saying I'm moving. I
see both sides of the fence.
No, I do start to wander into the other side now because I just can't see the change. I can't see the resurgence that would come. And I mean, if you look at, what you want for the next 9 games, 6 of those are incredibly winnable games. When you look in the league games, Leicester, Ipswich, Wolves, Bournemouth, Southampton, Fulham, 4 of those. What is it? 3? Yeah. So of those 6, 4 are at home. Now, for anyone, you should be getting 3 points against Leicester at home. You should be getting a result away at Ipswich. They can't hold down a lead whenever they get one. They look destined to go down. Wolves have been a shambles this season away from home. You beat them at St James's Park. Bournemouth at St James's Park again. Bournemouth have been really good this season. They have looked great at times. They've looked iffy at others. Southampton away from home. Southampton can't buy a result. Again, another 3 points. Fulham at home again. So there's the opportunity. But like I said before, I just can't see, and nothing has shown me so far. And I guess we'll kind of jump on the bandwagon of the Liverpool game, and I was guilty of it myself and thinking it was more to the point that had to be the blueprint. That had to be.
Yeah, we thought it was going to be.
That had to be the attitude going forward, and it almost obviously, and we sort of saw it coming.
That worries me. You see links to players like Tavernier from Bournemouth, and you think to yourself, that's not the answer. I mean, Lloyd Kelly, I'd rather have Lorraine Kelly at the back than that fucker. He was useless against West Ham. Absolutely useless. And even when we signed him, I wasn't sure it was that good of a signing. I mean, I said he's a good squad player, but he come in, he looked garbage, man. Like, these players aren't improving the starting 11. They're not improving the starting 11. I mean, Jacob Murphy, right, did well against Liverpool. To be fair, did well against Brentford, right? We are 3 years on from this takeover. and we are still playing Jacob Murphy. How much Kool-Aid have you swam in to say that's acceptable? In 3 years, we've seen Minter go. Did anyone see Minter's goal, by the way? Fuck me. When was the last time you saw one of our wingers do that, right? But Minter's
to be fair, he nearly fell over the
Amazon,
ball twice in that moment.
But the difference is Almiron. Oh my God, the most Miggy Almiron thing, I nearly forgot about it after the game. When Miggy Almiron came on, the most Miggy Almiron thing he ever did, he looked at the ball, he then spun to run away from the ball, and the defender just put his foot on the ball, and Miggy ran past him like the fucking road runner. Beep, beep. You're like, that is absolutely abysmal. That's just Miggy Almiron in a nutshell. But a lot of these players are nowhere near good enough, right? And we should have flogged them when the stock was at the highest. And that goes down to Howe's lack of ruthfulness, or his inability to go, right, now it's time to upgrade. And the reason it wasn't time to upgrade is because that's the most he's achieved as a manager, right? Because that's where he's come from. He's come from down here, and he's got top 4, and he's like, wow, I'm top 4, I'm a Champions League manager. They're Champions League players. Wow, another manager who had a bit more pedigree than that and a bit more experience than that might have went, right, I need better players for the Champions League, not these lads. And they would have moved them on when the stock was high, sold high, and got better players in. And that's a massive mistake. And it wasn't just how Staveley and Gudusi didn't know what they were doing upstairs either. So they were all caught up in the emotion. And a lot of the fans were just as bad. Other content creators, oh, we love these lads. Oh, they were never going to do the business in the Champions League. Not when you get the group of death as well, but they were never going to do the business. They weren't going to do it. Almiron's a purple patch player. 1 fucking yard. I'll say
He's
it again.
Had one purple patch.
Yard. Yeah,
in
one
his
fucking
entire career.
Yeah, exactly. Purple patch player, right? Sean Longstaff, hard-working player, and I always caveat it by saying a lovely lad, absolutely lovely lad, right? And a good role model to young Geordie lads everywhere of what you can achieve if you knuckle down and work hard, right? But he's not going to get on the ball and find a killer pass for you and split a defense. He's not going to do that, man. He'll run all day long. He's a great player for Arsenal at home when they're chasing the title and we're going to upset the apple cart. He's a brilliant player for that. But he's not a good player for Brentford away or for Palace away or whatever it is, or Leicester City at home when they're going to sit 15 yards back and go, well, Howe are Newcastle. And I tell you something, if I don't see Louis Milo on that fucking bench against Leicester City, I'm going to go up to the stadium and fart in Howe's face myself because I'll be fucking raging if I don't see Louis Milo on that bench. Jesus, wet man. Give the kid a sniff for fuck's sake. It's driving me mad. Sorry, fart in the face was the most offensive thing.
I think we just got an email off the club just saying, yeah, Chris is banned.
Chris is banned. We don't condone farting in managers' faces. So I could have said something a lot more violent, but this is my point. Why the fuck is he not putting Miley on the bench? Why? I mean, we're finishing the games with left backs in midfield, or midfielders look dead in their arse. I mean, fucking Bruno Guimaraes, he looked like, remember when you used to play pub team on a Sunday and you'd been out the night before and you were hanging? That's what Bruno was looking like in midfield. Just rolling all over the place, looked like his belly was swishing, burping the kebab from the night before. And you were thinking, there's no young, exciting, talented kid on the bench to put pressure on Bruno. So he goes, shit, I better not play shit because this kid's on the bench. And if he comes on and he hits that killer pass to win the game for us, I might be in bother here. Because there's no competition for them.
But the ridiculous thing is at that point, actually there is. Because you've got a £55 million midfielder sitting on the bench on Saturday, and still he puts in that performance, and still that doesn't change. And the change in midfield isn't to bring Bruno off, who's poor, or Joe Linton off that's poor. It's again to Sean is the one that's withdrawn, and I think Sean did particularly badly at the weekend. I don't think he did particularly well either. He was there. It's about as much. He hit the bar, didn't he, early on, and that could have changed things. But go back a little bit to that Tavernier link. I mean, if that's true, I'm sorry, but the standard has to be higher. And we're talking about moving on. We're talking about moving up, not about standing still. And
they're determined to get you to say it. They're determined to get you to say it. If we get battered against Leicester, I think you'll say it, guys. I think you'll say it.
I said, didn't I, during the week? I said that the Liverpool game had to be the benchmark for what goes forward, but there's no point in playing like that against Liverpool and then going out against Brentford and losing against them and Leicester. And yes, I think if Newcastle lose at the weekend, then I'm pretty much firmly in the Eddie Howe out camp at that point, because I don't think you could. I really don't think you come back from that, because there is just so many poor choices. There were so many poor performances this season. It's hard to ignore the Arsenal game. It's hard to ignore the City game, the Liverpool game, but they're the outliers. They're the ones that I don't understand how you can put in those performances against those sides and then not turn up the next week. How do you play as shit as you did against Everton and as piss poor as you did against West Ham and against Crystal Palace, and then fucking rock up for Arsenal and Liverpool? Yeah. That for me, yes, the players have let everybody down. Yes, the players have let themselves down in that regard. But Eddie Howe has to do better in getting those players motivated for those games.
He does. But he has to be able to drop them as well and give the fear of God in them. And I just don't think they have that fear anymore. Davey's saying, lads, there's a divide starting at the club and in podcasts. I'm not going to chop Eddie up. Cheers. Well, that's fine, Dave. You're entitled to your opinion as well, mate. Like I say, if you're already in, that's fine, mate. You know, and Eddie has done a great job at Newcastle. But I do think the wheels are coming off now. I think the players aren't listening to whatever instruction he's given. He looks devoid of ideas. I mean, I think we did a rant the other day about Eddie, and I re-recorded it because I thought I just went a little bit too hard, because I thought what he's done in the 3 years here deserves a little bit more respect, you know. But I did say that him and Tyndall look like two lads who forgot where to park the car on the sideline at the minute. They don't look like they know what the hell they're doing, you know. And that is a real worry. We've got James Perch in the comment, not that James Perch is saying, Chris, when Nissan Eddie going to get sacked and his staff are championship level? I mean, that is something that's going to be thrown at the manager, because he's come from that kind of level. He's come from that level. This is the biggest job he's ever had, right? And then obviously with the project and everything went behind it, he totally surpassed all of our expectations. None of us thought he was going to do what he did in a short period of time. And yes, he is a victim of his own success in that regard, because if he hadn't got us fourth, maybe the bar wouldn't have been raised, you know. But let's get it right. He's had investment. He's had players come in. He's had 400 million quid's worth of talent. Was it needed? Of course it was needed, because this club was devoid of quality in the roster from the horrendous, you know, Mike Ashley era. But he's had really good players, but he's made bad selection choices. He's made bad tactical decisions. His in-game management is practically non-existent. Seeing some comments here, Ty saying he's heard that Miley is terrified to be on the bench in case Chris invades the pitch. Yeah, I don't think so, mate. I don't think so. I would never do that to Louis Miley. Chippers is saying he bet Miley. Oh, my God. If Miley goes out on loan in January, I would lose my shit, Chippers. That would be a massive run. Get the spare box for that.
Can I just have well, there's another comment I wanted to make on the back of this. Yeah. And funny enough, this isn't aimed at Eddie Howe, but this
how long is this covered? Is this something? Don't you put it?
No, it's not going on, but it's more of a question to kind of, I guess, for you and for the chat as well. Is that the moves that were made by the club over the last 18 months, you know, they brought in, they got the deal with Salah, they got the new sponsorship with Noon, they talked about other sponsorship opportunities, they've got the Champions League money that came in, they've got the sponsorship deal with the kit sponsor with Adidas. Where's the rest gone? Where's all this? You know, there was all this talk about Newcastle working on X, Y, and Z to try and bring in more.
I've got a theory on that.
Commercial revenue. Where's all the talk about what comes next with sponsorship of other areas? I'm not saying rename the stadium, because I mean that would bring in an awful lot of money, but I think that would cause an absolute riot. But there are others. Where's that as well? Because as a club as a whole, it just seems to have just stopped. And I know that they're sort of working on looking at the stadium and things like that. But you brought in these guys in the commercial, in the back room to build that side of the club. Where's that gone? Why is that so quiet? Why have we not seen any more sponsorship of training gear, of the training ground, of the team bus, of Eddie Howe's left shoe?
Do you want to hear my theory? On it? Tell you what my theory is on it. we are not as marketable as we once were. So when you're finishing fourth and you're in the Champions League and you're beating PSG 4-1 at home, you're a marketable club, right? And I hate talking about this because I love the idea that football is still football. And football isn't football anymore. It's business and football intertwined in this horrible cocktail that's out there in this over commercialized game. That's another podcast for another bloody day. My God, I could talk for hours about that. But they're trying to market this club. The likes of Silverstone and Eels and all these other people, they don't give a fuck about who's playing at left back or whether, who's got the best XG or the passing ability. They don't give a fuck about that. They care about marketing the football club. But when they go and market the football club, they're talking about Newcastle United on a global stage. Now, people aren't seeing us on that global stage anymore. And this is when I go back to the manager, right? And that's not fair in many ways, right? But this manager was brought in to save us from relegation. Tick, he did it straight away. He then completely over-exceeded expectations, got us in the Champions League, right? But he's not a Pep Guardiola. He's not a Jose Mourinho. He's not a Carlo Ancelotti. He's not world-renowned or known as a coach around the world. Ancelotti throws that eyebrow up and everyone knows who he is. You know what I mean? Eddie Howe is just a really good English coach who, was on to a promising thing at Bournemouth, and then that all went tits up, and then he disappeared, come back, and he was linked to the England job and everything else. But Eddie Howe is not a massively marketable name around the world. Sean Longstaff's not. Dan Burns not. These aren't sexy marketable players. Isak is. Bruno is. Tonali is. But what's he done? He's put Tonali on the bench week in, week out for Sean Longstaff. So I think the commercial team are struggling to sell this project to these would-be investors. And also, you've got the bullshit with the Premier League and all of the restrictions and all of the stuff that goes with it, the bad press, the geopolitics of the Saudis. You can't get away from that. That's there as well, So I think a lot of that is causing a problem, Mark. That's my take on it. Again, Chipper's great point. Waiting for the City case, which I think they've said it's been decided, but not going to find out until March. I think I saw the two of you guys.
So the 115 charges, I think we'll find out in March that they've concluded that case. But there's the problem that they have with the associated parties rules as well, where clubs have voted against the 5 clubs that Jesus Christ.
Cape Price Arena. Doors are always open, Robert.
Open, yeah. Yeah, I sort of understand. I do understand that. It is when you haven't got the big games there that there are things that let's mark up. But let's not forget, this is still a Premier League club. This is still a club.
Oh yeah,
it should be in the top part of the Premier League. They're on TV around the world. They're marketable. It's not just that the Champions League gives that over. It's that that would be a huge selling factor. But there has to be things that can be done to sponsor X, Y, and Z.
That's a good point.
Look at an F1 shirt. There are 57,000 sponsors on a car and on the other gear that they wear.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's a good point by Ty. There's no issues with boxing or the golf. There's no geopolitics there. But again, the thing that they don't have there, Ty, is they don't have the restrictions from the Premier League. And I think that is a huge issue. The Premier League there's no secret the Premier League is making it very difficult for the Saudi Arabians to do what they want to do with Newcastle. And I do think it's by design. 100% it's by design. And they would be happy as a pig in shit if the Saudis got bored, sold Newcastle and fucked off. And then Newcastle just put it along, and we're like a Brentford or an Everton or even a Brighton, as good as Brighton are very well run. That's what they would want us to do. So there is huge question marks at the football club. And I really feel like we're coming to a crossroads moment here, Mark, with the manager, with the project as well. Because, fans are losing faith. Fans on that crest of a wave that everybody was riding in this takeover, the waters have really calmed, and a lot of people are looking, going, well, what's next? Where we're going next? What's the next spot on this journey? Why am I still looking at Jacob Murphy at right wing? Why am I still looking at Callum Wilson being injured again? Why am I still looking at Sean Longstaff starting? Why is Nick Pope falling to pieces? Why have we not upgraded on these players? Why is the manager losing games? People are now starting to ask those questions. Anybody can be happy and come out and do smiley little press conferences at the Stack and all that when things are going well. But look what's happened when things have gone a bit tits up. They've all just scurried off into their boardrooms and locked the doors. There's radio silence from the club. We don't know what's going on. Nobody knows what's going on with anything. The January window, the new stadium, the training ground sponsors, as you said, and nobody's asking the questions. The only person I've seen to even raise the subject is Craig Hope. And he gets a lot of shit for it, but at least Craig raises the questions. I don't see any other journalists raising the questions.
No. I think there's too much of a free pass given by a lot of the journos. And I think that's the same across an awful lot of clubs.
2 seconds. There's a rant tomorrow, Ty. There's a rant tomorrow morning. Just for you, mate. You inspired me, mate. Hold your breath on that. There'll be a rant tomorrow morning for you, mate.
But I do think that's a problem right across the board with journalists with football, because they're reluctant to ask difficult questions. They're reluctant to challenge because they have their own jobs to look after. Mm-hmm. And surely these editors have got to sit there and go, you can't ask the same questions over and over and over again. It's boring. It's dull. We're not getting anything out of it. You have to do better. George, if you got a car journey, I'll have this up as an audio for you overnight, so you can listen to the rest in the car, mate.
Absolutely, mate.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So the journals they've got to start challenging a little bit more. They've got to ask better questions.
But just to finish on this before we get Out of Toon, David saying Mitchell's been brought in to manage the football side of the club, so let him get on with it. I actually do think this whole thing, Trevor's still trying to get you to say it. Say it. I think the whole thing with Mitchell and Howe, I definitely think that's coming to a clash as well, because somebody mentioned about Bunce before. I don't think Eddie likes the Bunce appointment. I think the reason that Gordon and Tonali was maybe benched at the weekend was the whole Bunce scenario about managing players' minutes and all that kind of stuff. And I kind of get it, I understand it. But if the manager's not bringing in players with that same kind of freshness or energy to replace them in the squad, then that's an issue. If those players don't exist, that's another issue, and that's something that we have to try and, figure out in the coming windows. But yeah, it's not particularly great. We've got the Macam Cabbies in the house. Good evening, play nice, Macam Cabby, judging by that username. But yeah, it will be very interesting next few games for Howe. And I really do think we're in the end game here with that, Mark. And I think if he loses those games, I think it's cheerio, Eddie Howe. That's what I think, mate.
Yeah, I'll say it again. I think if it's a defeat against Leicester and a defeat against Brentford in the cup, I think that's it. I think at that point it becomes how they go. Said it, Trevor.
There you go, Trevor. He said it just for you, Trevor. He's just said the words. You can go to sleep easy tonight, mate. You go sleep easy tonight. But yeah, so moving on to our other section, which is non-Newcastle. Thank God, because Newcastle are really depressed at the minute. Out of Toon, where we talk about everything in the world of football in and around, not Out of Toon, but let's just start with a Toon thing anyway. The legend that is Alan Shearer. My God, we could do with that player right now, couldn't we? As good as Isaac can be. Can you imagine having Alan Shearer in this team? He could play. He never down tools. He could be playing Stevenage away or Manchester City at home, and the man was still giving 100%, bleeding from his eyeballs, fucking smashing balls in the back of the net, from 40 yards or hitting off his face and going in from 2. Shearer never down tools, and he's not happy again with the players. And he said he didn't like the attitude of several of the Newcastle players. And I like this, Mark. We've just talked there about the journalists bottling it, right? When a player who's got that kind of gravitas, not just with this club, definitely associated with this club, but with the Premier League and English football in general, when a player like him says that, these players have got to get a fucking foot up the arse, I think, because they might not be respecting Eddie Howe at the minute, but they sure as shit respect him, I bet you.
Yeah, I mean, there were, I get his point. There were an awful lot of really lackluster approaches to things. The lack of getting back, the lack of pushing on, and one of the moments he put was exactly what I said about Fabian Schär, not closing that, the dropping back from Johan Wissa and allowing him to get into the position to take that shot. You have to close down better. Your attitude in that regard has to be better. and there were too many of them that were just not there. Particularly that second half. The second half was it was awful. There was just nothing from any
Shearer
of them.
played in good Newcastle teams and shit Newcastle teams, and he never down tools. So I think those players have got a lot to learn from Alan Shearer. But moving on to some other things, we talked about the Man City charges there. That was breaking news, we said earlier on. So the hearing at Manchester, 615 charges is now concluded, and the verdict will be coming. I think it's in the coming months, but it's March. What's just quickly on that, Mark? What's your thought on this? Because I think this is a big sliding door moment for likes of Newcastle and Villa. If City get off with a slap wrist for this, it kind of shows the Premier League up for not having a lot of teeth. Exactly. And I think the knock-on effect naturally is other clubs that go, oh, fuck you then. And I think a lot of them will not be as conscientious of stepping the line, I think, as the previously were. Would you agree?
My feeling is this, and it hasn't changed since really the first time we talked about it. I think they will want to make a statement about it, but it will be the minimum amount that they have to give them if they find them guilty. It will be a slap on the wrist, effectively. They're not going to relegate them. They're not going to get huge points deductions, although, to be honest with you, I'm not entirely sure Manchester City would mind a points reduction this season, because they're not going to win the league.
Excuse for them.
So, they can stick an asterisk on this one and move on to next season. I'm not sure they'll be too bothered. I just can't see them making a proper example out of them, depending on what the outcome is. You'd like to think that if they have broken X number of rules and they've got all of those charges and they're guilty of all those charges, that the book gets thrown at them, and that kind of gives everybody in the league a wake up call. And those where you have to stick, and they've got to they have to do something if they're guilty. I mean, the other thought is, do they just be found not guilty of everything, or give them a? You know what I mean? But like I say, my overall feeling is they will be found guilty of some of the charges, but not all, and they will have a minimal punishment.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we'll watch that. I think all Newcastle fans will be looking at that very much so in terms of the outcome. And speaking of Manchester City, and staying with Manchester City, it's been tough for Pep Guardiola. We talked about this the other week. He's scratching his napper. He's looking a little bit, forlorn. And this kind of did the rounds on social media. I've got a couple of different takes on this, to be honest with you. I'm not a big fan of these wind-up merchants who try and wind guys up with a camera phone to go viral and all that kind of stuff. And I was kind of hoping that guy just let Pep go to fucking stiffen this bloke to teach him a lesson from being a knob, really. But I mean, Pep's got to be a little bit cooler there as well, I suppose, in that moment. But you don't know what the guy was going through. He could have caught him at a bad time. He could have had some bad news about a family member or something like that. I don't know. He could have caught his missus in bed with a window cleaner. Who knows? But I just, what did you think about this Pep thing? It was very un-Pep, wasn't it? A bit weird.
I think the pressure's got to him a bit, hasn't it? Over recent weeks, and we've seen un-Pep-like things, and this is just another one of What I always get from this is you don't see what's come beforehand, and it was all, well, this guy's there to try and get an autograph from him, but what's he said beforehand? What's prompted? I know he has the pop afterwards, or it's just because you've lost.
It's just because you've lost, is what he said.
But what's come before that? I don't know. But Pep knows better. He knows not to engage there, and it's one of those. It would have been funny to see him stick one on the bloke, but I'm not sure that would sit well with the FA.
It would have been quite humorous. Well, speaking of the FA, and speaking of the footballing bodies, probably the most unsurprising news has popped out today. I think the only other surprise news would have been if Greg Wallace was invited to speak at a feminist rally, I think, to be honest with you. But David Coote, or David Toot as he's been named by many people, has been binned by the PGMOL. If people didn't know, we did cover this on Out of Toon a while ago, where David Coote was caught saying some disparaging things about the future Newcastle manager Jurgen Klopp, actually, and Liverpool following a game, and also just to rub salt in the wounds, or maybe not salt, maybe some bugger sugar. Old David Coote was caught sniffing something up the toot as well, so I think it was pretty safe to say he was going to be bin, Mark.
The least shocking announcement ever.
Yes,
I think we'll see that one.
I was going to say, yeah. To be fair, there's a lesson learned there, isn't there? You know, for poor David Coote, is just be careful who's around you with a camera phone, man. Especially if you're somebody in the public eye like that. Just be careful. You know, that's it. Don't do something stupid. You know.
I think it's a reminder of just be careful who your friends are around that, and there is always somebody out in that level of things. There is always somebody out to get you.
There's always somebody dodgy with a camera phone. Ask Kim Marsh. Now, that's a video, by the way. That's another story for another day. Moving on. Come on, the chat. I'm waiting for the chat to go alive on that one. They know what I'm talking about. Mark's too sweet and innocent, but you guys know what I'm talking about. The Kim Marsh video. What a video that was. Right, so moving on. It's getting a bit rough for poor Ange as well, mate. I think he's. It was quite funny. I did see some. I think somebody put this on. It was the Celtic fans. Versus the Spurs fans. Obviously, my dad's a Celtic fan, as you all know. A big shout out to Jimmy C. Not that he watches because he's too busy in the social club having a pint. But there was a clip of the Celtic fans chatting, you know, only one Ange Postecoglou who's tapping his chest and all that. And then the flick to the Spurs fan. They were giving him a really hard time. Now, I do like Ange. You know, we've said this on the channel before. I love the way he speaks. He's a proper football, you know, philosopher, isn't he? But he's really having a tough time. Spurs are just like we are. They're so inconsistent. One week they're great, next week they're crap. They can't find any consistency, and I fear for Ange, Mark. I think he could be out before ready. To be honest with you,
it's such an odd side. It's such an odd side. I mean, there's a reason why it's Spursy, isn't it? And again, you go through those moments where what have they done this season? They've beaten Man United 3-0. They've beaten Brentford 3-1. They beat West Ham 4-1. They beat Villa 4-1. Beat City 4-0. In fact, they beat City twice because they beat them in the cup as well. And then they just have this flip. And we talked about Newcastle being Jekyll and Hyde. I mean, Spurs are the ultimate Jekyll and Hyde side because they go 2-0 up at the weekend and then throw it all away and look like it really could have been more. They're so strange, and there's a little bit like Eddie, I think, with Ange. There's a reluctance to change. There's a reluctance to do something different. There's alter the way that you. Sorry,
sorry, Crin.
Change your approach, and if things aren't working, then sometimes you do have to change it. And it's that definition of madness comes back. It's doing the same things over and over again. I like Ange. I think he seems like a proper good bloke. But he could be on his way out. The weird thing is their record recently is better than Newcastle's. They're one win in 7 as opposed to 2 in 12. So they're about on par.
Absolutely. But I do feel like it's the end game for Ange, and he'll be unlucky, but not as unlucky as this poor bugger. So this Australian fan jetted in for the Merseyside derby. I mean, I wouldn't want to be on that plane. Fuck me. Obviously, the game was binned thanks to Storm Dara. To be fair, I did see some videos on social media, and it was typical of the Scouser humour, where there was just a bunch of lads almost commentating through the glass of a building while people were pranging off lampposts on the outside. So although it was dangerous, it was a tad bit humorous as well. But this poor bugger flew all the way over from Australia because he'd been deemed a lucky charm after he arrived in time for the Blues' recent 4-0 win over Wolves. And then obviously the Merseyside derby was postponed. So he's obviously not that lucky, is he, Mark? To be fair.
That's really unfortunate for her. The other bit I'd seen that he sort of put all his savings towards it to go. I mean,
no sympathy from Baz down under. His name is Mackenzie. To be fair, Baz, he should have just picked a better team, shouldn't he? That's what it is, mate.
Well, there's that, and how the name's not his fault. Ultimately, I'll give him some leeway on that one.
Not too nice.
But yeah, maybe say I am. But yeah, I mean, God, you to fly thousands and thousands of miles to then find out that the game's cancelled is just, it's crushing,
unlucky.
isn't it? So
unlucky. I mean, wait till he finds out Sean Dyche was the manager as well. God, do you think that's so moving on to a couple of Out of Toon stories to finish up with, quite sad stories actually, to be fair. The first one we're going to talk about, it's not so sad now because we know what's happening. So if you didn't know already, Mikel Antonio was very, very lucky to get out of a really horrific car crash at the weekend. I think he's stable in hospital now. He's had an operation as well. It was horrible. The car was mangled. And, one of my friends, obviously my day job, I spent a lot of time on the road. A good friend of mine does a similar job. He got sideswiped by a lorry completely out of the blue in the pitch black. Thankfully, he was all right. But, it looked like Antonio was pushed or crashed into a tree or something like that. But thankfully, he's okay. But I thought this was brilliant by the West Ham players wearing the Antonio shirts. And there's been a lot of piss taken about this kind of stuff over the years, like when Luis Suarez bit somebody and got suspended. But I think when your teammates lying in hospital after having a car crash and being very, very lucky to be there, I think this was a nice touch from the West Ham players. And they won tonight as well, didn't they? So
yeah, was the Suarez one not after the racist thing with Evra? Was that not that? What
it was. It was the racist thing, yeah. Which was weird by Liverpool, yeah. But this one by West Ham, total opposite end of the
big respect for that. I mean, just look. I mean, he's just. I mean, if you haven't seen the state of that car, how on earth he's got out of that in? Well, I was going to say one piece, but it would appear that he's had lower leg fractures. I'm not entirely sure we'll see him back on a football field again, which is quite sad because he's one of those players that he does a terrific job. To quote Harry Redknapp,
terrific.
He really does. He's one of those players that knows what he is, and you use him in that ilk. Yeah, and he proved that the other week. So look, I hope he gets well soon. I hope he's God willing, get back to playing again. But look, he's lucky. I mean, really, really, the state of that car is shocking.
He is. I tell you what, I don't know what's worse, the state of that car or the abuse that poor Katie Price is getting in the chat here. She's getting buried now. She's 6 foot under here. She's 6 foot under.
This is a football chat, everybody. Come on now.
I say she's 6 foot under. She's normally about 12 inches under, isn't she, to be fair? So, but anyway, moving on from that. So just to finish the Out of Toon, on a lovely story, actually. And this lad gets a lot of chip, I think, because of, his kind of persona and everything else. People think he's a flash cock and all that. But I've got a lot of time from as you have, Mark. And it's David Beckham. He put this beautiful post on about was it Kath Phipps, the I think she was the receptionist at Manchester United, from when he was a youth team player, and I think she passed, and he obviously spent a bit of time with her before she passed on. And that's one thing I love about Bex. He doesn't forget where he come from. He doesn't forget the people who helped him and treated him well along the way. And I think generally he's a lovely bloke, and and a real class act. And I thought this was a lovely emotional post from a guy who just remembers this sweet lady who was kind to him when he was a kid, and it was lovely to see him.
It's always nice to see that you said it there. To players not forgetting where they came from in that regard. And look, he's got all the wealth in the world. He's been everywhere in the world, but he remembers his roots. He remembers that there was somebody there at the very beginning that went, I'll look after you. Promised his parents that she'd look after him while he was there, and true to a word. And it's those sorts of things. When somebody like that has been part of the fabric of the club, and people have come and gone, and owners and managers and players, it's people like that remain at the club that are the true heart of it. So and that really nice touch for Bex. And to be fair, for Bex, I'd expect nothing less from him because he is that kind of guy. So fair play to him.
He's a class actor, and to be fair, it's a far cry away from what's happening at Manchester United right now, which will be spoken about in the rant video tomorrow AM, guys. You've asked for it in the comments, but just thoughts, I suppose, with Kath Phipps' family there as well. It's a really sad time when you lose somebody that matters so much, not just to you as a family, but to so many people like Beckham as well. So massive thoughts with Kath's family there as well, mate. But yeah, as Ian says, Bex is a legend. Yeah, for me, I don't think he gets enough credit, not just for what he did as a player, but just for what he is as a guy as well. I think he's an absolute class act, and you don't see that kind of thing from a lot of Manchester United greats. Do you really do stuff like that?
Also, on the Beck subject, is he now advertising absolutely everything in the world these days? Because I keep seeing him on
he's got to pay for Messi's wages somehow, mate. Fuck me.
Well, that's very true.
He's trying to pay off that bodyguard, isn't he, to be fair, mate. But I like coffee.
Go on.
Sorry, go on. I just said I like coffee session. Looking forward to Evermore's rant videos. Well, definitely will be one tomorrow. No doubt about that.
Well, I was going to say this is probably what Newcastle need to do with their senior management staff, is start to get them doing like on-screen advertising of certain different products and stuff, and then you can bring more money into the club.
Yeah, maybe Dan Ashworth can advertise weed killer, but he doesn't want to hurt himself, does he, in the process? So there's a little clip in for tomorrow's video for you guys. But that's us done for tonight. Thank you so much to everybody who's tuned in and stayed with us so late. Crin, I'm looking at you. Well done, mate, for staying as late as you can. But yeah, if this is the kind of thing guys like, smash subscribe, help get us even further forward. We're past the 9K one now. Yeah, it's on the 10K next. That's the next step. I've got a great price for 10K as well, guys. So keep tuning, keep smashing the button and recommend us to family and friends. We love doing this. We love you guys being in the chat as well. It really helps the episode flow. We will be back with loads of content this week. The rant's there tomorrow. We've got some rumour has it transfer videos coming. And then we'll be back with match previews and post-match for Newcastle's next game against Leicester, which is a must-win, in my opinion, and I think a lot of people's opinion as well, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great evening, afternoon, morning, wherever you are in the world. Keep it evermore, and we'll see you next time.
Cheers, guys. See you.